What's up, guys? This is LTP Productions Presents. I'm gonna try something a little different today. I'm going to show you how I set up one of my sessions using the floating bus technique, and I do a virtual SSL type situation as well. It'll be more about kind of watching how I set it up, and I'll talk about some of the techniques I'm using. You're not going to be able to hear it real time that great. It's not really as much about that as it is seeing me. You'll be able to hear my work in the SoundCloud, my rough mixes, my first pass, my second pass as I go. You'll be able to listen to it there for absolute reference, but this is going to be more about just watching me set up the session, and I get to talk and about all the different things I'm doing. Floating bus and SSL virtual console. Because I like the sound that the SSL virtual console provides in the overall picture. It's quite nice. And while I'm getting this going here, let's talk about the different SSL channel strip plugins that can be used. I'm using the SSL, or the Slate plugins. I used to be on the Waves ones, okay? Well, what's the difference? Guess what, guys? I have vast experience with the Create Blank Session Waves ones, and I used them for a couple years in this same style. And I switched over to Slate SSL plugins at the beginning of the year-ish, early spring, basically, late winter, early spring. I switched over and have done 4 projects on them already. Big projects. So I already am used to them, and I also know the differences pretty well in a detailed manner. And guess what, guys? All right, well, I guess which one is better is subjective, but one second to just aimless remix. We don't need to say it's the Narcissist 2 remix because mine's called the Impurity remix, so this one would be aimless. And aimless is Nick Huff's representation of his remixes. These are our own stems. These are our own tracks. We've already tracked all this stuff. This is from Apophis Blackrock, which came out October 29th to all streaming platforms. You can listen to it. It's a freaking awesome album. It's a completely different aesthetic than this, which is the Blackrock remixes. Aimless is Nick. He does the majority of the restemming for the remixes and does some pre-mixing, makes a few decisions in the mix that inform me and my decisions, which I'm actually really like. I'm cool with that. And then I make some decisions to further enhance, and then I mix. So it's a collaborative effort. Some of the stems are based on a lot of the tracks we've already tracked, including the vocals. Okay, so here's all the stems, and you guys get to see my master bus chain. And I gotta tell you guys, like, it's also subjective what master bus plugins you use and why and how far you want to take it. I'm basically trying to achieve what it might sound like mastered. So I guess you could say it is kind of top-down mixing, but I'm not relying on it. I'm mixing into it because I like mixing into something. I'm gonna do it right now. Okay, here we go. Top of the list. Again, this is Slate SSL native bus compressor. This is based on an SSL bus compressor. Oh, geez, first time it takes a second. It wants to refresh everything. There we go. Just to start, I can make decisions later, but I'm going all the way slow on the attack and all the way fast on the release. I don't want to necessarily hear it pump yet, at least. I like super transient drums, and I'm not this type of music. You don't need for it to pump at all. I don't want it to pump at all, actually. But there have been cases where I have sped up the attack just a little to round off transients if things are a little too sharp. But always start with the slowest attack so that it's just basically catching. Here's my second in the chain. It's a little EQ. I'm doing a little bit of 200 to 300 dip to clean up the low mids as I'm compressing in. And I do it again in the EQ of each channel strip plugin on each track, because 300 to 200 is ugly, and you can keep your mixes real nice and clean. It's subjective, and I'm only taking out 1 and 1.5 dB, and you can see the curve is kind of sharp, kind of gentle. There's the, can you see that? 400 and 300, okay? 400 and 300. And you know, the whole mid-range, I might start moving this down to 350. I'm gonna try it, and I always adjust, but I'm gonna save it right there, actually. And I'm gonna save that. The soul's in your mid-range. I don't think you don't want to go up too high. Mid-range is your friend. Then I put in a little fresh air. And this, depending on how dark the tracks are, after I have everything rolled off where I want it, high passed and low passed, I put a little air back in, because it makes it sound like it's in a room, it's in a space altogether. It really helps glue the mix together, the high end of the mix together. And that's very gentle. And I may go up a little higher than that certain times. I rarely go lower than that because it's not really doing much below that. But yeah, it does put a little air back in. It's really nice, actually. It's very pleasant. You can't overuse that. That gets really harsh in the 8 to 12K area if you overuse it. And then I need one more EQ. Sorry, it's hard to talk and do this at the same time. Here's my Pro Q3. This, all I'm doing on this is a little bit of mid-side. And it's not very much. It's 0.8 of a dB of low end. I'm taking it from 100 and below out of the sides, okay? And it just helps keep everything cleaned up, but you don't lose your punch in your low end in the middle. It's very nice and easy on the ears. What? Oh, come on. Stupid. All my Slate stuff's about to renew, so maybe it's keeping an eye on me. Okay, I have a setting for this master bus compressor is freaking fantastic. And before you guys, you know, listen, if I'm gonna use a professional mastering engineer, or, you know, like Trevor Noakes, UK, or something like that, I will take this off and send it with everything else still on, but with this off. And that gives it roughly like 6 dB, 5 dB of headroom, which is plenty, okay? But I've made these decisions in the mix, so I know that my like low mid that I like is cleaned up, and so I'm confident I can do that. But this compressor, I'll go right from this to SoundCloud or something. This compressor is awesome, okay? It works really well. It's pretty gentle. Everything's pretty gentle. This is where you start to, your attack is a little bit faster, so it starts to roll things off and squeeze everything together in a very pleasant way. It works great. All right, here's the tracks. So my master bus chain is on. I'm gonna give it some headroom. I like to start right around -9 or 8 because I'm gonna start parallel compressing all this stuff too. So let's listen to the track and I'll organize while I listen. Cool. This is gonna be cool. These have been so fun, you guys. These mixes have just been an absolute delight to work with, and I love the music. And Nick's being very creative. So it looks like he did a left pass and a right pass on those guitars. That's good. I'm gonna move all the drums up to the top. There's kick and snare. There is a bass in there that's already sounding distorty, but there's a lot of low end in that. Yeah, I'll just gain stage right off the bat, and if a track's too hot, I'll just gain stage it with clip gain. Okay, kick, snare, hat, overall kit. Oh. That's more of a program. There's the overhead. Cool. We got headroom. So we're only, right now we're hanging out at -13 lufs, -14 to 12, which we're gonna easily use up all that. Is that too loud? I need you to be able to hear me, so I'm gonna mix very low volume. This might be difficult if I'm talking, but I was saying when I start parallel compressing, I will easily use up all that headroom. I'll be playing at between -10 and -8 LUFs as I'm doing close to my top volume of the mix and bouncing it right around there, -8, -9 to -8. That's where I like to be. May seem loud, but it can handle it. And this is at 48 and 32 float, and so it has lots of headroom. Actually, that's where I like to do it, and it works for me really well. Okay, I'm gonna drop in all my channel strips, mono on mono and stereo on stereo. Okay, this is the SSL channel strip sound. Turn the threshold all the way up. Turn the ratio. This is where you can get a lot of the adjustment enjoyment. I start at 1.2. Everything's going to be 1.2. I'm not going to start messing with the EQ yet. We're going to get there, and I'll show you what I do on each group. So we just engage the SSL sound by turning the compression on at gently 1.2, but the threshold's all the way up. So what's happening is all your tracks are getting dynamically controlled, and it's imparting that wonderful SSL sound, and it's EQing to compression. So anytime you start messing with your EQ, it's EQing into compression, which has a very pleasant sound. And then everything adds up and builds up. Little bits make gobs, okay? Everything adds up and builds up to a nice, loud, punchy, controllable mix. And you have control over everything. And the floating buses will come into play, and you'll see the floating buses give you even more control. I don't play while I do this because it just keeps stopping and it's annoying. I'm setting this up for you guys. First, I'm using Alt to drag and copy the plugins all the way down the row. I do stereo on stereo and mono on mono, of course, because you can drag a mono to a stereo, but as soon as you try to drag a stereo back onto a mono track, it doesn't let you anyway. So I just do it this way. Okay, everything's in. Those are all vocals. That's good. Vocal, vocal, vocal. Here's the synths and the arps, this bass synth. So this is kind of like an electronic version of the song. There's already, there's the original mix, the original song of the Narcissist, which is pretty much a straight rock song. Then there's my remix, the Impurity remix. And then now there will be a second remix of the song. Okay, I'm going to drop in some buses, guys. So we go to auxiliary, and I'm going to drop, I think I'm only going to need 6 for this one. I can always add another one if I need it. And before I start moving around, I'm going to put the channel strip right on the bus as well. So I get further dynamic control, and again, I'm gently compressing this on the onboard compression here and engaging it. So each bus, it makes sense. If you were on a console, okay, your bus channels would have another channel strip on them. And you would have compression on each channel strip, and then you'd be hitting the onboard console bus compressor. Okay, so if you think about it, and you get more further control. So you can like high pass, low pass, and you can pull out a little more 300 and on bass type elements, on low end oriented elements. And so you have that further control of the EQ on the bus itself. And that's really where the magic is happening, because you're getting, everything's getting so clean. You can clean up the finest thing. And it all adds up to a really nice, yeah, I do need one more for vocals. Adds up to a really nice big picture mix with all the control in the world that you would need. Okay. And I'm getting really good results, guys. Okay, there's the vocal bus. I don't put it at the very bottom because that's annoying, so I just put it under the last bus before. Keys, synths. Okay, I got the groups, guitars. These are the low end oriented arps and bass synth, and then drums. Okay, so we'll assign all our buses. This will be 1 and 2. Just go down from the top. And while I'm at kick and snare, that's kick and snare bus, by the way. I'm gonna center them. The room or overall drum bus, I don't do a drum bus and then a room bus on top of that. I only do a room bus because I do kick and snare parallel compression. This is just the way I prefer it. I have more control because the transients of kick and snare are like the most important. They set the stage for everything else. I'll also do if there's a lot of tom work in a song, whether it's electronic or organic, either way, I'll do a tom compression track, a tom bus. That way I have full control over what the toms are doing, and I can clean them up and all that stuff and do a little. So on the bus, for me, deductive EQ seems to work better. If I'm going to add something, I'm going to do it on the track itself. Okay. So really the EQing I'm doing on the bus is deductive and high pass, low pass stuff. I'm rarely, if ever, adding on the bus. And that's because there's already a ton of EQ going into it, and it's getting compressed often heavily. And so positive EQ after the compressor, well, it's into another compressor, but positive EQ on the bus does not sound pleasant to me. So I do it right on the track, okay? I will do deductive though, of course, high pass, low pass. Okay, I think you got the picture. Okay, those are already set up. This goes pretty quick. And yes, you guys, I have a template for this, but I'm doing this to show you how it goes. Oh yeah, okay, so here's my snare bus. Now guys, for the floating bus, I always do 2 tracks of kick and snare. Because you can never have enough. But I bust them together, you know. but I start with, because it's already pre-mixed pretty good when there's 2 tracks. Does anyone else do this? Show me in your comments. You have to do a lot less work in your bus if you've got it like 2 paralleled like this. It just works. Now, I'm gonna share a pretty cool trick with you guys right now. Hope you can see this okay. Okay, snare bus, kick bus right below it, right? You guys, I'll go back and label these later. I just want to move quick, and if I get the mix knocked out, they're my stems. This is not like a client, so this is a pet project. So guess what? I probably I'm not gonna go and be meticulous and label everything like a madman. Not in this case, because I know what everything is. I know where I put everything. It's the same every time. It's not a client stem, so I don't feel compelled to label it. I love MJCU compressor. This is the best compressor and most versatile compressor you'll ever see or use. It models all 3 types: tube, opto, and a combination of both, like FET. And you can turn density on and off, which is like a saturation mode. It's like this is the modern one. MK3 is like modern, but with some tube blended in. All the way slow attack. Recovery depends. It's tempo oriented, but I know about where I'm going to be. I got to turn my synth on so I can tap the beat. Give you a couple shots of the studio. I have some pretty nice little outboard gear for tracking. We track bass, guitars, vocals, and drums here. And then Nick has his own tracking studio in Chicago, a suburb of. It's called Landmine. That's why you see L-Town Production Studios and Landmine Studios. When it's a joint collaboration venture, we plug both. Because he does work for clients as well, and he also does artist development, as do I. So he's got a good little studio out there. Open recent. I closed out and then reopened because I'm gonna have to tap the tempo real quick, and then I always just round up. I know what they are. Sometimes they're the same as the original, but instead of looking it up, and I don't have my list here, I'll just tap it. It's easier, unless it's a really obscure tempo. It's usually always the most even, close to number. So I need to do that real quick. Oh yeah, this is gonna be cool. $75. Easy. And you can easily tell when you go and grid up on the... Yeah, everything's on the mark. No, not quite. So it's... Maybe it's 74. Nope. 76. There we go. 76. See? Everything lines up. Oh, this is gonna be sick. Okay, so I've got snare compression on only. So, all right, so let's go back to finishing this. Okay, on the kicks, I'm gonna work top down basically. I put it all the way over to 200, which reaches into 300. I narrow the Q just a little. It's not super extreme. If you narrow the Q too much, and I'm sucking out, so I'm sucking out 300 here, right around 3 dB, and I won't high pass, low pass those yet. I'll also do it on the kicks themselves, maybe a little more gently though, you know. You want to keep as much 100 in there as you can. You don't want to suck out 100 too much. but my stuff always ends up super punchy and plenty of low end and good low end management. So I know that this works for me. And again, these are just starting points, and I adjust. I just know when you work with a template and you're doing a lot of mixing for clients or for whoever, these are all really good starting points. Okay, I'm not married to any of this stuff. I adjust as needed, but I know that these little things get me really close. I just put subgen on one of them. Okay. Nick lets me and encourages me, and I like to use my own sample blended in. So now that I have two, yeah, I get to trigger and blend in my own sample of choice. I have a really nice sample of my own supraphonic snare, which I use all the time. But for electronic music or dark wave, synthwave, and industrial, I find it a little too snappy, a little too rock organic sounding. So my go-to is this Deftones snare because it's still rock, but it blends better with industrial dark wave. I'm pulling out the overheads just a little. Now that's blended in, and give yourself some headroom. Okay, and then I also do it on the kick. His samples are great. There's nothing wrong with his samples. But when I blend in my own, it gives the transient what I know and expect, and it enables me to manage the transients much better. That's really more what it's about. It's not about changing the sound necessarily. You know, it's about giving yourself the blend that you're used to, that you know you can work with when it comes to low end management and transient management. Okay, the snap that you want makes the punch that you want. I also pull down the overheads on the kick actually quite a bit. I don't pull them all the way out. I like a little room sound, you guys. It's cool. Take a little too much of that out somewhere in there. 6, 7, 8 dB is what I'm taking out, if you can't see. Okay, so here's where I was. I'm gonna put the triggered snare into the bus. Now watch, even though you're gonna change the bus number, you can move it in there and it's already saved. Your settings are already saved, negative 54 dB, and it's on pre. So that means pre and post, guys. That means that the original track audio is coming through as well, and then change it right there. See, the original audio track is coming through as well, but it's also in parallel going to the bus. So you're not removing the original source. Okay, that way you're more blending them, and so you keep the original source sound, and you have that additional control. I pull my drums in just a little, get them out of the corners is really all you're trying to do. Because for me, what goes in the corners are guitars, and then synths go out pretty wide too, but I even keep synths all the way out of the corners too. Is this that drum track? Yeah, I'm gonna pull this in a little too. And on something like this, like a program that's being blended in with the drums, I might narrow it even more to keep it out of the way of the edges of the drums. You know what I'm saying? Pan placement. Oh shoot. Damn it. Okay, I'm back. I ended up going 78%. So it's just inside where I go in on the drums, which is 81 roughly. So that's that sound. That's blended in. And often, guys, I'll put it on its own bus to give me further control. I'm gonna do it right now. Because I know what Nick wants in the mix on that. So it's not really a mystery how his mixes are informing me. His stems, it's bounced, so where you just pull them up and it's going to pretty much be the balance, okay? It's a static mix. It's not a mix necessarily, but it's a balance. So that's informing me what he's hearing and what he wants. And I don't go completely off rails when it comes to like what he's thinking. I know what he's thinking based on all that. So I'm being informed. So this is now on its own bus. Negative 78, or oops, 78 and negative 78. I'm just doing it right now. That's the key, guys. You have to set your sends pan. It should match. It can't be, you know, it should be close. It should match what you're doing on the bus, the send, okay? Anyway, all I'm going to put on this is, I use the MJCU compressor and everything. So this would be like having an outport, a really nice compressor outboard off your console on the bus, okay? And so you're compressing the buses in parallel, and your regular tracks are keep a little bit of saturation. I love that saturation knob. Little goes a long way, but it just adds up to be lovely. Now, hear that? Okay. So that little distortion sound is in that track. So we're gonna go down about right there. Now see, those drums are already shaping up to be fat, super fat. Now, this is real bass, so Nick does real bass on everything, even if it's electronic. Sometimes it's replayed for the specific track. Sometimes it's the original bass track off the original song if it's in the same tempo. And his bass works freaking fantastic. So I really accentuate his bass tracks because they're so good, and he gets a really good clean DI sound. And you know, collectively I'm gonna go kind of narrow on this. I don't go straight up the middle, but I like to widen it. If you mid-side and like pull out 300, you can go a little wider if it doesn't have garbage on it, you know. This is the bass bus. So here's my bass bus chain right off the bat. I'll just show you what I'll be using. It works every time. So pull out 3 dB to 4 of 2 and 300, you know, on a narrow Q, and go ahead and high pass and low pass it. 72, it's right around 70 to 75 usually works. Okay, then let's just make sure this bus is working. Yep. All right. Here's my bass bus, guys. So next, right after the channel strip, we're gonna throw on a Sans amp. And I already just know what I like on this. I just put a tiny bit of top end in there, a tiny bit more low end. If I really want to EQ aggressively, I'm not gonna EQ it here, honestly. I'm just getting the amp sim sound and giving it a little gain and a little distortion, okay? I just know what I like. I'm just adjusting that a little bit, and then I'm gonna hit, you guessed it, an MJCU. And this compressor loves to hang out right around 12. It loves it right there. It's like perfect. And then I take the edge off though by blending a little out. All right. So there's our bass bus chain. Now check this out. Listen to that. sick. This has been so fun. These tracks have been so cool. Again, the remixes, Apophis, Black Rock remixes. If you were like me with bands like Filter, Nine Inch Nails, even like New Order, like there's so many, but I'm a remix album guy. Like sometimes, like I'll get into the album, I love the album, and then sometimes I like the remixes better. We got to do our reverb track on the drums real quick before I skip ahead. I was getting excited and going for the guitar bus already. We cook along. Now, believe it or not, we're gonna throw the kick and snare into the room too. Yeah, I'm excited. I want you guys to see my room bus chain, and we can talk about that, why it's effective, and of course the wonderful world of, so we're going to put it on the snare, center that back up, wonderful world of reverb. Okay, I do one on the kick, you don't need both, and I only send a little bit, like 14-15 dB of it. And that's why this is called a floating bus, a floating drum bus, or floating buses in general, because you can send however much you want to the different elements to your buses, and you can control everything. You have full control out of all your sends in your buses, and so it's floating. It floats. That's a Brendan O'Brien thing. He'll tell you in interviews that he got it from someone else that he worked with, Dave Jordan even maybe. But I don't remember exactly who. Okay, we're doing the drum room. Okay, here's the drum room. So right now it's just everything. A lot of snare though. I want extra snare in there. Okay, reverb 1. This is one of the funnest, coolest parts for me. I love hearing how the drums sound in the room bus. You want to time the decay with the tempo, you know, as close as you can, or in the general area. And then you time it again on the release of your compressor. So the first one, we're only going halfway, dry wet, because I still want to gain and be able to control and gain a little bit of transient through this drum bus as well. Okay, and then I high pass it right around 250, and I low pass it. Depending on how dark and bright, you can really control how dark and bright your overall drum mix is when the way you EQ your reverbs and your buses. Okay, full control over it. That's where I want that one. Reverb number 2. We're gonna do Seventh Heaven. For electronic, I like this. It's a little bit more silky. And then I'm only even doing a little bit here. I'm not, you know, I'm just adding reverb to the reverb, okay? But having 2 reverbs is the trick to it sounding organic, having it sound more real and not like a reverb plugin, okay? It doesn't matter what to match the pre-delay of the other one. This one's already high pass and low pass the way I like it. This one allows a little more high end to come through, and then this one, as it's taken out, it's not reverberating hardly any low end at all, but it is doing the mid range, which I like. Okay, so that's all there, and the settings aren't completely, because you're not putting it directly on the track. Your settings are honestly not as important. I mean, you have to EQ them and they have to be like good for the song, but you don't have to really worry too much because you're blending it in because it's on the parallel bus. Okay, get it? Okay, so the release, again, it should match your snare release and be close to the same and in the tempo of the song, okay? So that it's dropping with the tempo. Watch. Obviously that's way too much, but see how the needle's dropping with the tempo of the song? That's what you want. Okay, now we're gonna blend this out and blend it in. See, now however, pulling quite a bit out, right? However dry or wet you want, but here's your organic room sound. And you wanna address it and look at it again when you've got everything kind of mixed. You wanna go back to it and make sure that you're blending enough in for the song, you know, for the context of the song. But I usually end up right around like -12 to -15 dB. So, you know, it's gonna sound over the top until it's in context with everything. In fact, I'm gonna take a tiny bit more out, and again, this is to taste, and this is subjective, but now I have an awesome reverb track that I can blend in on its own floating bus, okay? We're good there, good there. There's the bass. Uh-oh. I'm gonna move this up over by the bass. This track's cool. We need to get it out of the corners. And it has low end, so we need to narrow it a little bit, you know. How I organize my pan placement is if it has low end in it, it's gonna be on the narrower side. Now we could blend that into this bus if we wanted, this other synth bus, and we might do that, but this track has lots of cut already. We wouldn't want to put it in that one anyway. It would have its own bus right here. Let's put it right here for now. See, now it's even cutting better because from narrowing it. All right, so let's, I usually go to the vocals right now. Actually, what's this? Yep, I put these in the right. Oh, that's a vocal. Okay. This is cool. We'll leave this pretty wide, but I'm gonna take it out of the corners. You can be thinking about the aesthetic as you're getting informed by these tracks. You can be thinking about the aesthetic that you want. Like if you put reverb on these tracks, you know, it'll put a little reverb back out in the edges for you. So don't be afraid to narrow it out. Leave room for the stuff you want in the corners, like guitars. But it'll still be wide, is what I'm saying. It's still really wide, but when the guitars come in, that's where I want on the corners. That's just a mono split. That's not an actual stereo. Yeah, that could be cool. It's not 2 actual passes. It's a semi isolated two channels, like a cab and a direct, probably, but that's okay. I really love it when it's 2 passes of each, 1 hard left, 1 hard right. I really love that. But the client or the pet project writer has made a stylistic choice, and I'll just roll with it, and it's fine anyway. If it were an issue, I would just go, hey, Nick, that's not guitars. I'd say, hey, Nick, do 1 more pass for me, you know, like that. I could get him to do it, and then I would have a little more control, and I could do hard left, hard right on 2 different passes. It's often ideal, but I always blend like stereo mono tracks with hard left, hard right anyway, so I just know that, you know, you can blend multiple passes with a stereo track is what I'm saying. All right, 9 and 10. Make sure that your pans match the track. So make the decision on the track for pan placement first, and then when you go to your buses, your sends, just have them match. I did that one opposite for a reason, yeah. And this might mix better later on in context. I might change my mind and put one of the guitars left and one of them right, but that one doesn't come in yet, so you can copy paste, you can fly some stuff over there so it's even all the time, or it just depends on how it's working in the mix, because I like the guitars add the mid-range and the width, so it's super important for me to have the guitars pan placed real nice and wide. It sets the track. Let's check on our meter how. Oh yeah, and I need to look at my metering real quick. Mine's good. And yeah, it's loud, so it actually sounds great in the mix. The gain staging could be it's a little hot. Let's give ourselves just a tiny more bit of headroom, like 1 dB is seriously on that. There, that's already better. Oh, I was gonna check the metering on the guitar to make sure they're even. Yeah, I mean that's pretty even, so I'm gonna leave that dry. Now before we go to the synths, let's get the vocal up in there, okay? Are all these vocals, vocal, yeah. We'll make some decisions about pan placement here in a minute. But for now, we're gonna get them all in there, and as far as how wide it goes, I'm gonna narrow it, so I don't really want or need the vocals to really go past about 60. Okay, because again, you're keeping it out of the way of the synths. Okay, what bus do I need? 13, 14. So let's set up our sends. And on the sends, you guys take note. I'm sending everything with a little headroom, so I just negative 5.4 has kind of been my go-to. It's not sending it too hot, but it sends a good amount. And then we're gonna hurry and make a decision right here. Some of the stereo tracks, what he's telling me is keep these wide. You know, the main vocal kind of straight up the middle, but then any backups and any stereo effects tracks that he's got going, I leave them wide, and that's on purpose. He's sort of informed me that that's what he wants and that's what he's hearing, and I agree with him like all the time. So I just don't overthink it. I don't worry about it. I'm gonna put the stereo tracks at the bottom so I can make some decisions on pan placement on those, and I'll put the monos kind of more at the top, organizing them a little. Okay, and then keep putting them in. These are all the mono ones. Yeah, I can make some decisions there later. And then these are, I'm on Windows 8.1, so I have to go a little bit slower. I do get freeze issues. I'm upgrading this year. Okay, let's just make some quick, rough decisions on pan placement so we can hear it kind of in context. We'll start wide there, and then we'll go ever so gently narrower. And I may end up going like, on these stereo tracks, I may end up thinking that it needs left or right, or I'll pan place them differently. But for right now, I'm sort of trusting Nick's instincts where he wants them stereo, and I'll see how it sounds, and then I'll go from there. And I'm just kind of starting wide and getting narrower so that each one of them has its kind of its own place. And then I'll make decisions and move things around as needed if it's not working. Like this track, what is? So that's a low one, yeah. Low ones you want near the middle anyway. They don't sound good on the edges. I like that track. Now remember, I've got compression engaged on every track, so I'm getting a little bit of dynamic control right now, even going into the bus. It just gives you, it makes your mixes able to get louder right out of the gate. I love Echo Boy. I know. I use the ping pong a lot. But here's my settings. The key is to get delay in there, but kind of hide it. Okay, I'm gonna EQ it. You don't want like harsh S's repeating, so I get delay going, but I hide it. This is my favorite thing in the entire world. I go quarter note, and I kind of know that the mix will end up being somewhere in here, and delay doesn't have to be the center point. I want it to just have a ghost of an echo. So basically I get it sounding good, and then I hide it. And that works best for this type of stuff. So you can hear it in there, but it's hidden. It's more for texture. It's not annoying. On a vocal bus, dude, don't be afraid to give it some saturation. Seriously, saturation sounds killer on vocals. Yeah, that's sick. Gonna high pass, low pass the bus a little too. I like to filter some of the high end out actually for this type of music. You just don't need all that high end, you guys. And again, you roll off stuff nice here. Your master bus is going to put a little air back in. So again, that's why you can get away with this. You can filter things the way you want them stylistically, and then the air gets put back in anyway. So it's just very pleasant. Let's just leave them all up the middle. So as far as the pan placement on the vocals, that should be a pretty close like reference point, like a pretty, Fairly static as of right now, but it's gonna work so I can hear everything in context. Okay, now we need to put the synths. You get the soul and the mid-range from the synth, so we need to get those in here onto the bus, and we're already like looking good. We're already getting a mix going here. The drums are banging. I'm gonna have to get the bass guitar balanced in there better. You know, it's just that's why they call it top down. You're kind of, you know, you're narrowing everything into the aesthetic and the layout and the presentation you want. A little saturation on synths is freaking awesome. Goes a long way. I won't tell you guys how many times I'm going to tell you that I love this compressor, the MJCU. Use it all the time on everything, okay? On my buses, at least, okay? 11 and 12, these are these synths right here. Let's get these on the bus. Shout out to a few people, my boy Demetrius Patton, who's in Seattle, working musician and studio mixer owner operator. He does really awesome work. I bounce a lot of ideas and mixes off him, and he's been awesome. We talk shop, and he's taught me a lot. The dude knows his stuff. He does really excellent work, you guys, so check him out. Demetrius Patton on Facebook. He used to call his studio 5-4 Sound, or I can't remember. I'll have to put the link in the description. Shout out to Zach and Matt from ZHZ Podcast. If you didn't check out the podcast yet, check it out. Lots of great episodes. I was the guest in October. We got to talk about BlackRock. And then shout out to Jeff Huso and L-Town Productions Presents, Damage Auditorium. He just dropped a new album for Cold Circuit. He does excellent work. His work is really, really interesting and cool. And he's turned into a great mixer as well. Okay. What's going on here? We want this in there too. Yeah, we didn't put that in there yet, did we? Okay. Yep, we made decisions 95 and 92, so there we go. All right, I need to switch batteries, but you know, GoPro keeps overheating. I can't set up my webcam over here. I'm gonna make a couple more decisions, and we'll have a first pass mix. I'm gonna separate some of these vocals out. Okay, what I was going to say real quick about bass, and I'm going to bounce this, and you know, I'm going to study the mix, but I just got that pretty close. Just set that up in the template, you know, in a template I would use, and I just showed you how I set up all my buses for floating buses and floating drums. I was going to say about the bass, if you EQ it right, you can stuff a lot more in there, okay? Make sure you pull out a little 200 to 300. I'm not adding anything there. This is my bass bus. I'm gonna hurry and filter this. I thought I did. Maybe I didn't save it. I'm gonna hurry and filter this bass bus, not to about 70. Clean up the low end. But listen, see? Should I put that on its own bus? I think that's what I'm gonna have to do. Let me quickly do this. I need a little more control over it. I could get it to poke more if on the bus, just to keep them out of the way of each other. It's subjective if you end up wanting to put a synth on the left and a synth on the right, but something like an ARP, I don't like it loading to one side. I don't like ARPs loading to one side. I like it even and wide and balanced in, but I get it out of the corners. That's all I really worry about, is getting it out of the corners. Now, I can go ahead and throw a reverb in here too before my compressor and use it sparingly and just put the synths in a space together, you know what I mean? And it's not going to take much, you know. You'll keep the transients, but you have full control over the reverb on the synths. And a little shorter, but a little longer, and then let's pre-delay at right around 30 milliseconds for these types of tempos always works well. 30 to 40 on synths, and like for drums you can go 40 to 60. It's already high cut and low cut on the reverb, which I like. So you pull up Seventh Heaven and it's already EQ'd for you, basically. Okay, so there's that with a little reverb on it, blended in. There's the actual. So I'm not ruining or crushing or damaging the original track. It's just I've got reverb and compression paralleled in. Gives me all that control. I love it. And there's that, and that's getting bussed into there too. So it's in the same space as the ARP, as the other ARP. Might as well keep them together, you know. And that one comes out a little wider, which I like. I like that. And here's where the guitars come in. I freaking love this. On robot voices, you gotta high pass, low pass them, because there's a little harsh note that comes out, artifact sometimes when they hit. So don't be afraid to just filter it out. You want a little bit of it because it's part of the transient, but that's better. We can use a little more hi-hat. Now he blends his stems to how they sound good in his static mix, which is totally fine. So all I have to do is clip gain it up to where it sounds like it's in the room with the rest of the drums for me. Because I paralleled another kick and snare in there, so right off the bat I ain't gonna keep up, right? So look at that. 3.5 dB of just clip gain puts it right where I want it. Let's talk about bass. So if you EQ your bass right, you can stuff more of it in. I could stuff a little bit more of this synth in there if I could control the low end on a parallel compression. Okay, so that's the idea. You can really make it jump out of the speakers, but without adding more unwanted low end and low mid and all that. But the texture of the track, the mid range and the like kind of the attack of it can punch out even more. So again, it's having that control. Gentle. Having that control is what all adds up to a good, clean, punchy, fat, and loud mix. That's what this technique allows for. This is not, at this point, it's like using a console and having additional outboard compressors on the parallel with your buses. Oh, we just leave that right there. So it all adds up to a really nice, big console sounding mix. And you can see that it's super simple. Like, it's just technique. It's not a ton of plugins. It's not a ton of fancy crap. It's just using the channel strips correctly and the floating buses correctly. That is what, it's back to the basics type thing. Okay, guys, it's back to the basics. And you can still start, you know, getting into transient shapers. You could still use your fancy stuff. You can still do that. You could do it on the bus, or, you know, use it more sparingly at that point, because you may not need all that fancy stuff once you get your buses and your floating buses set up correctly. It mitigates the need for tons and tons of plugins, you guys, is what I'm trying to tell you. Okay, let's listen to the synth bass and make sure I got it. All right. See? And then we're gonna filter it. Let's go up to 75. I'm pulling all that out. That's exactly what I want. I don't like to put reverby stuff on low end oriented synth tracks. I'm not gonna put reverb on that, okay? I'm gonna keep it nice and clean. There you go. So now I've blended that out, and that's balanced, and you can hear it. Mid-range in there. Oh yeah, baby. Slamming. Still wasn't liking that harshness coming out of that. All right, guys, there you go. I'm gonna bounce that, rest my ears, go eat my breakfast, listen to this on the headphones, and I just got really close on that first pass right there. I got it set up on the floating buses in the SSL virtual console. Yeah, that was super productive. Would that take me an hour? It's going to be really close right there, and I can make some couple things I listen for when I'm messing around, and I got to go grab some stuff for Thanksgiving. You know, go to the store, I'll listen to it in the truck, and a couple things I'm listening for when I study my first mix is I got to clean these leaves up. Any detailed pan placement stuff I want to make some changes on, the effects balances, anything that bugs me, that sticks out, that pokes out, anything that's bugging me. Basically, you're dwindling it down to where you can listen to the whole song and nothing takes you out of the song and nothing's bugging you. And you got to try to be really objective, you know. It's an aesthetic and stylistic choice, sure, and that's subjective, but you're cleaning up the right areas, your effects are EQ'd correctly, you've taken out the ugly, low, mid, muddy stuff. It's on a really nice master bus chain where you can hear what it would sound like if it were mastered. It'll be nice and loud and punchy on everything you listen to it on, and that'll inform if you've taken out enough of the nasty signals, some of the high-end harshness, if any, some of the low mids, things of that nature. And basically, I'm just going to kind of scrutinize my first pass mix, you know, throughout the day, and then I'll make another couple adjustments, and you know, later on today, and I'll have a real good mix on the first day, right off the bat. Just the daughter, talk to her for a minute. Okay, so basically, I'm done. There's the bounce. You guys can watch me upload it to my SoundCloud, and we'll just talk and button up and end things here. So we just did a mix in the SSL console, a virtual console with floating buses. Okay. I hope you learned something. Try some of these techniques for yourself. You know, you don't have to go hog wild and do a bus for every group like I do, but you know, when you do, you just have all that control. You have control over every group and the effects on every group. You have control over every channel, the EQ of every channel. So you can see the benefits of why that works. It's an old strategy. It's nothing new, but some of us mix engineers out there, and some of the ones I learned from in the academy, are going back to basics. They're using these techniques. And even in the hybrid fashion, forgot what I was doing there for a second. Even in the hybrid fashion, like they may be doing mix and hybrid, but it's basically the same thing. You're sending groups out to a compressor, outboard maybe, and then bringing it back in. But you know, even if you're not hybrid, like it works because you have the compression and the effects in parallel, which gives you all that control. And it's about balancing your buses, and it's about balancing the effects in the buses. And so once you kind of get the hang of that and start thinking of it in that four-dimensional way, you know, the fourth dimension being balancing the sends and the buses, right? That's that one other dimension that you have to balance out after you've got your other tracks balanced, and you correct gain staging, you got a balanced mix going, and then you balance your buses, and then you're bringing in all that wonderful junk, punch, saturation, what have you. You're bringing that in and blending that in and making your track bigger, fatter, louder. So, you know, it's nothing new. I hope some of you guys learned something and try it. So this is how I do it. It's worked really well for me. There it is. And it works really well for me. I'm not precious with with my information. I've been in the academy 5-6 years. I like to help other people, as I've been helped by some of my mentors and predecessors have helped me greatly. So let's share the information and share the technique. There it is, you guys. 9 songs. I might do another one, but I got to eat breakfast. So there you go, guys. Links to my SoundCloud, my Facebook, L-Town Productions, everything. Oh, I got to move that over in the mix. It's too close to I have to move the whole mix over like 30 milliseconds. Anyway, all right, guys. Talk to you later.